Welcome to Showboys, a podcast that delves into the world of film and TV. Hosts Nick and Mike take their water cooler talk from the office to the web as they discuss their favorite movies, shows, and all other content in between. In this week's episode, the boys reveal their top 5 favorite film franchises. So, what's watching? Welcome to another episode of Showboys. This one's special, the first show of 2021. Finally able to put 2020 behind us. Although that feels kind of strange saying because we're technically still in 2020 while we record this, but you know, details.
It's over.
It's over, pretty much. I mean, tomorrow night. But yeah, my name is Mike, and joined as always by my good friend and co-host Nick. How are you doing tonight, Nick?
Perfectly splendid.
Hey, it's a nice reference I haven't heard in a couple months.
Everyone go watch our Spooky October playlist on YouTube.
Hey, that's right. You did make a bunch of playlists for one of them being our October episodes. You did one for our December episodes, so
Yeah,
they're all there.
I guess that's a little bit of an update. So yeah, as we kind of establish themes and different things going forward, obviously it will be great to add to those playlists in 2021 when we come around to October and December again. So YouTube, we have our Spooky October playlist that kind of collects our, I think, 4 or so episodes of this past October, all of our spooky themed topics, which are really good. I think that was a really good series right there. And then we have our Holly Jolly December playlist for our most recent Christmas and holiday related topics. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can find a few more to add in there as we move through 2021 and
Yeah,
do a full year of recording.
yeah, that'll be exciting to have a whole year in the books. But yeah, I guess this was an unplanned plug for our YouTube channel, which if you use YouTube frequently, we ask that you visit our YouTube page. We have a link in our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/showboyspodcast. We upload all of our episodes to YouTube as well, even though we don't have video at this current moment. We do upload the audio versions to our YouTube page. So our entire backlog's up there, and we have handy playlists grouping, similar content together. So, it's all easy to find and easy to get through. So head over there, subscribe. It's free and helps us out, and enjoy. Yeah. So tonight, our episode, we're talking about a thing.
It's a very small thing. I think this is like going to be a 25-minute episode.
We'll see. We always say that, and then 2 hours later.
2.5 hours later, not 25 minutes, it's 2.5
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, you came up with the show idea tonight, so why don't you tell us what we're talking about?
Yeah, so tonight, I think it kind of came to me because at this time of year, as we get to the end of the year, I just feel like it's that time of the year to watch big franchises, right? Obviously, it's kind of Star Wars season in Disneyland. Lots of Star Wars content. We've obviously been talking about a lot of Star Wars the past month or two here. But also around the holidays, I get an itch to watch other franchises, and also television loves to play our favorite franchises and all their movies over and over again. There's a lot of notable mentions in there, and we'll definitely probably cover them. So I thought tonight would be a good idea to kind of cover Mike and I's, favorite franchises of all time.
Yes, back with another top 5 list. I like doing these list shows. I had fun doing, our recommendations for the streaming services. That was fun. What was the last? Our top, however many favorite movies. That was fun. So I'm excited to get into the franchises. But yeah, so I kind of took this as film franchises. So is that kind of what you were intending? I didn't like put TV shows and stuff on here. I just put like movie.
Yeah, I think it definitely it's intended to be film franchises. But obviously, I think the surrounding content supports that.
Yeah.
I think really good franchises have obviously just all of it anyways. So, but what makes a franchise, obviously, I think, is a solid collection of movies, right? That can be easily watched and picked up. It's those movies that you could catch like in the middle at the end on TNT, and you love it. You're sitting there watching it for 10 minutes, and that was enough to get your plug. And I think a little bit, I do have an honorable mention that isn't quite in that bucket, but I want it to be. So we'll explore the edges of this bucket.
Yeah, I have quite a few honorable mentions because I figured we'll probably have a lot of overlap of our top 5. Just because there's some real big hitters out there. But I put on some maybe forgotten about or overlooked franchises that I enjoyed, but not enough to like put in my top. And then I also have a little section at the end about franchises that I haven't seen yet, but really want to, and for whatever reason have not like seen yet. So yeah, I'm excited. Should be a fun episode. Should be fun going through our lists here. And we even had I put out post on our socials about what our audience's favorite franchises are. So we'll go through one of our fan picks and any more that come in while we're recording. So
Quick question.
You wanna? Yeah. What's up?
Well, I do wonder, are we gonna stop, or so like top 5? Are yours in order, like number 1 to number 5,
No.
and then all your own? Okay, it's just
No,
like the bucket.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Okay.
I couldn't put it in a particular order, but it's like my favorite 5. How about you?
I think my top 5 are generally ordered.
Nice.
Generally, I think it's safe to say. And then definitely after 3, it becomes like a hodgepodge.
Right. Well, why don't you get us started? Let's hear what your first selection for your top 5 favorite film franchises. Wow, it's a lot of F's.
Top 5 favorite film franchises. I love those things, especially when they occur like that. Okay, I think I will start with my number 5 pick. Let's just call it that. And we'll work our way up to the suspenseful number 1 that I know no one's going to guess.
You're going in reverse order here, okay?
Yeah, big reveal at the end,
Okay.
So I'm going to have to say, like, as an overall good, solid, the number 5 for me would be the Wizarding World, which would include the Harry Potter films and then also the newer ones, which I don't really remember the name of what they call
like
those collections.
The Fantastic Beasts and
the Fantastic Beasts,
Crimes of Grindelwald and the Grindelwald.
Yeah, I guess
that.
that would be. I guess Fantastic Beasts is what that collection would be called.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I think they all fit in the same category for sure.
yeah. But definitely that larger wizarding world, I think, it's up there for me. And I think in part because I've at least read most of the books um, as a child, and it's just kind of like maybe a little bit of nostalgia, but I do enjoy those films. They're definitely like easy rewatches for me, and obviously just culturally, it has a pretty solid impact. And I don't know too many people that dislike that film franchise.
Yeah, I had that on my honorable mentions. So
Very nice.
we missed our first chance at overlap, which is cool. But yeah, I grew up. Yeah, well, I shouldn't say grew up in late middle school, maybe early high school is when the books started coming out, or at least when I like noticed them. So
Mm-hmm.
I read those, like as they came out in that like age range and loved them. They were like my favorite books. And the I hate being that guy that's like, oh, the books are better. But in this case, I actually did like the books more than the movies. But the movies were pretty good, but they weren't uh, good enough, in my opinion, to crack my top five. But yeah, I also tried to do this like based solely off of like movie stuff. So
The movie
even though I
viewing experience.
right, yeah. So even though I like the book so much, this only made it on as an honorable mention. But so like, what are some of the specifics that you know elevated this to your top five?
Well, definitely kind of breadth of the movie. So there's a lot of them. Not that that's a requirement, but it definitely helps. And there's a lot of content they cover. So I think the progression, just overall, from the first movie all the way to the last two, right? Just the change, how the movies change, right? Just as they get older, much how the books adjusted, it got bigger, got more mature. Um, so like to me, I enjoy that a lot. It draws a lot of parallels to um, a pair of other franchises in my top five that it draws inspiration from. I think, particularly kind of like you have the Chosen One, you have the big baddie. There's like light and dark, if you will, a lot of gray area. So just like a lot of common themes that I feel like were kind of recycled, reused, but applied in a very different way. That wasn't done before. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's another big thing too is it's very original, at least from my perspective. I don't know what else kind of precedes this sort of story that the
Right.
Wizarding World is.
I mean, you kind of, I would say the most similar, even though it's like not really that similar, would be maybe the Chronicles of Narnia, right?
Right.
Because it's kind of magical, but it's also like completely different. But yeah, there definitely is a uniqueness, especially when this came out. I mean, it was. You also have like the Lord of the Rings, like wizardry
Mm-hmm.
fantasy world, but again, that's like so different. Even though it's kind of the same, it's very different.
Yeah, and to the defense of everything that does kind of knock off Lord of the Rings, it is kind of like the template for all modern wizardry type things. Whether you're talking World of Warcraft or when you talk about that kind of elements, right? Even like the architecture in that, you see a lot of that in video games and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. So, you know, I think Lord of the Rings sits as its own template for everything. So, like, I'm never going to knock anything for ripping on Lord of the Rings
Right.
because it is the subject matter when it comes to that. Um, and and then while you were talking, I was also kind of thinking something you said. The elements of each movie, they have, there's a template to each movie for the most part. I think later on it kind of deviates a little bit, but you got your the before they go to school, they go to school. There's the class scenes, and they're all structured in this very digestible and entertaining way. And I've always appreciated that about those movies. They're almost episodic, right? The way they cover the
Hmm.
school year. Then they have the adventure outside the school when they start introducing the local area, whether it's the brewery or Diagon Alley and things like that. I just always
Right.
think that world building and expansion introduced through this same kind of template is always fun to me.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really love about the Harry Potter verse is just how large and fleshed out the world is. Like, there's so much, with the Muggle world and everything at
Mm-hmm.
Hogwarts, and like, there's just it's so deep and rich in world building that like to be able to have a franchise. I mean, how many books were there? Seven of just the Harry Potter books. I'm pretty sure there were seven. But like that's a ton of books to world build, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
visually in the movies, like it looked so cool, and like being able to expand upon what was built in the books visually in the movies, definitely is a big plus. Also, Harry Potter has like the one person I can cosplay as, just by not shaving and or cutting my hair, my boy Hagrid.
It's funny you mentioned that. Up until maybe seventh grade, people called me Harry Potter because I got glasses in like
Yeah,
fifth or
I could see
sixth
that.
grade, and I was short, a little a little stubby, chubby. I resembled Harry Potter, young Harry Potter, to a degree. Yeah, we had the
That's
similar
pretty funny.
haircut, glasses. So I even have like, I won't even get into it, but I have like a scar on my head. It's really dumb.
Wow, he really
The more I
liked Harry Potter.
describe
No,
it,
I'm just kidding.
I was
Plus, Robert Pattinson, or young Robert Pattinson made his
yeah,
not his debut, but he, was in Goblet of Fire. So thank
yeah,
you.
that's a deep cut. I always that movie whenever that comes on, then I see him there. That's always a pleasant thing. I forget
Yeah.
about too.
That was probably my favorite book too, Goblet of Fire. That was probably my favorite one out of the whole series, like movie and book.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing that I really appreciate about them because they have this repeatable template, but they also are very unique. Each one, whatever the main arc is, right? And that one was like an entire tournament that did a lot of different things and expanded on the world in very cool ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good one. I would probably feel bad for leaving it off of the list. Um,
Well, thankfully you put it on, or else it would have just been an honorable mention.
Yeah, there have been a bunch of upset people if we just absolutely did not even include that one in our
Yeah.
collective top 10.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's a good choice. I think since you're gonna try to put yours in order, I'm gonna try to put mine in order. So for my number five, probably going to go with the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
I put this
Okay.
as five. Like I love superheroes. I enjoy superhero comics, games, movies, shows, and I just think that what Marvel was able to do with their universe building through theatrical releases over the span of I when did Iron Man come out, like 2007?
7, pretty sure.
So
7 or 9.
like 12, 13 years of establishing super intricately like interconnected universe of all these different superhero, like separate superhero franchises. I mean, yes, they're all Marvel, but like I mean, there's three Iron Man movies. That could Iron Man franchise could be a thing, right? But then like there's a Thor franchise, and then there's a Captain America, and then it's all under this giant umbrella of movies. And just the way that they were able to tie all of the movies together with this massive overarching plot that, revealed itself throughout a decade of real time and putting movies out and culminating in, two of the most fun superhero movies to watch ever with Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. Like it's a blast to watch and immerse yourself in that universe. Now I have it as number 5, excuse me, because I mean it's like not that there's anything wrong with family friendly and stuff, but as you're kind of talking about a formula for Harry Potter movies, I mean every Marvel movie has the same exact formula and there's not really any deviation from it. So they're extremely predictable and like I like to kind of be caught off guard at times. I will say, there are moments in Infinity War and Endgame that caught everyone off guard that were, pretty cool. But you know, they're Disney superhero movies, so kind of predictable and not as crazy as they could be. I'm also more of a fan comic wise of DC than Marvel. Granted, I haven't really read Marvel comics, and I was super, super, super into the reboot of the New 52 series for DC. So I'm kind of like biased towards liking DC more than Marvel just because of reading the comics and stuff. But with that being said, it's hard to argue or deny what the creative team behind the MCU was able to do with, Kevin and John, and what they were able to establish. And what they did was groundbreaking. We haven't seen a franchise as big as the MCU. I mean, we have Star Wars, right? But I mean, they don't even have as many, not nowhere near as many movies as the MCU. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the MCU?
I have a lot of I have a lot of piggyback notes off of everything you just said there. Um, yeah, definitely. I mean, once again, I'm glad that made your top five. I'll just spoiler it right now. It's not in my top five, but it is an honorable mention.
Hey, two
Um,
for two. No overlap so far. Nice.
yeah, I like how we traded blows on that one. Our
Yeah.
top five, our number five is our each of our honorable mentions. Um, yeah, yeah, nothing really against the MCU. It just doesn't quite get it there for me, just because as a cohesive unit, I don't appreciate enough of it to land in my top five. But I definitely appreciate and love, you know, the groundbreakingness that they did with it. Um, and they have that, like you said, they have that formula. It doesn't really change. That's both good and bad at the same time, depending on what you're looking for. It's great formula for the masses. Um, that's why it is the number one grossing franchise, I believe, at $8 billion worldwide across the whole thing. Star Wars comes in at two at like 4 billion, and they also, I think, have the most movies um, but comparable to James Bond this year. They have 23. James Bond has 25. But think
Yeah.
of
I forgot how
but
many
think
movies James Bond has. Like that's insane.
right, but think of the accomplishment that they did as they did those 23 in like 10 years. And James Bond has been going
Right.
on since the 60s or whatever.
Yeah.
So they just it was a monumental just like domination of what they executed on. Um, Yeah, and I mean, I like particularly very. There are elements of the MCU that I like way more than others. So to me, it's more of a as a whole. It's not as strong as like some of its parts. So I think that's just kind of where it lands for me. But
Yeah.
I know you recently this year sat down and you worked your way through the first to the last in chronological order. I should probably do that at some point, and maybe I would get a better appreciation for it.
Oh yeah. That was super fun. So after I think it was before Spider-Man Far From Home came out, my wife and I started. We went through the entire franchise again in chronological order, like you said, story wise, not like release date wise. I found some list on the internet somewhere, and rewatching it like after seeing Endgame and like kind of how the entire arc wraps up. Going back and rewatching it all in order of the story was so fun because you notice so many like little details that point to things that happen like 8, 9, 10 years later, and it was just really really fun to do. So if you have like a couple months and you need some movies to watch, like that was a fun thing to do. We didn't quite make it all the way through. I think we stopped at Infinity War just because we kind of got burnt out because we slammed through it in like 3 weeks or something like that. So we kind of had to take a break.
No, I mean that totally makes sense. Yeah, and kind of like you're saying how they develop the story and also the characters, right? Not through their own whatever you want to call it, their own what's like the Iron Man, like their trilogies, they're independent, even though some of them have more or less.
Yeah,
But
there are solo films.
yeah, they're solo films. So Iron Man, the character, is developed outside of that, and the
Yeah,
movies are interlocked. Where especially with Captain America, his character arc is developed over, I feel like 3 different solo franchises, and then the
right.
Avengers one, and just the way that all kind of weaves together is very nice.
Yeah, and not only that, but like they kind of established the whole post credit scene thing, right?
I wouldn't say, they didn't invent it, but
No, they like established it as like something that people kind of expect now.
they established the formula of how to use it and how to make it good. So
Yeah.
if anyone ever had the question like how do we make people sit through the whole credits, they figured it out. Like they found the answer to that
Yeah.
question. To the point where we do it and there's nothing there sometimes with
Yeah.
even other movies. They're always there with Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely know there's been movies where people, we hung out in the theater because we're like, maybe there will be a post credit one because I feel like there could be. Just give me
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, kind of like your reason for keeping it out of your top five. Well, I guess it wasn't your reason for keeping it out, but the point you made about how like just being able to appreciate like kind of what they were able to accomplish is the entire reason that it is in my top five. Like there are movies and franchises in my honorable mentions that I enjoyed way more than most of the
Right.
Marvel movies, but I had to include it because of just what it accomplished as a franchise. But yeah, you can't like deny what they were
No.
able to do. Yeah, so that's my number five. What's your next one?
So into number 4. I'm glad we got those 2 big ones out of the way. I feel
Yep,
like
just get them out. Get them out of there.
we did a lot of fanfare right there. Now it's time to get into like the real stuff. No, I'm gonna lie. My number 4 is it's there more out once again, kind of like Harry Potter. To me, these are just fun, well done, and are just rewatchable. And that would be the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Um,
Nice. That was on my honorable mentions.
good. I hope your number 4 is on my honorable mentions. Um,
Let's keep the trend going.
yeah. So I mean, I like the Pirates of the Caribbean, particularly the first three, but I appreciate them all. I enjoy them all, but they're just so well made, and the impact of the first one. I mean, I feel like that came out of the blue, right, in 2007 or whatever it was, and it just literally made waves. They're funny, they are detailed, they have, I think, decent stories, especially when you look at over the arc of the first three. Um, Really memorable, quotable characters. Um, I think it's a generation of a good, decent amount of memes, but they're just good fun. And that's there's a real Disney kind of stamp on those where they're enjoyable for everyone. There's not a lot of turn off about them, and the music's really good. It's about pirates, right?
Yeah,
And
can't go wrong. It's got
yeah,
Johnny
can't go
Depp.
wrong.
He's great.
A lot of notable moments with Johnny Depp in those movies. Um, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, and just obviously all the other like supporting cast that they bring on. I
Hmm.
particularly like um, the East India Trading Company. I just think those are great British bad guys. You gotta love British bad guys.
Yeah.
I think how that guy goes down in the third one with the ship just exploding around him and the music playing, he's just walking down the stairs. That's just one of my favorite moments in a movie ever.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it just has a lot of highs that make up for the lows that I know exist.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I definitely I enjoy that franchise a lot, and I guess to me, especially with the number 4 and number 5 pick, those are definitely out of a sense of enjoyment and like an innocence or like just a pure funness is why I like those
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. I have a couple on my honorable mentions that maybe weren't the best, like received, like critically or like wise,
Mm-hmm.
but I have fun watching them, and it kind of brings up a larger point of like a lot of movies, like people go into it with certain expectations, like this is gonna be a genre transcending, life changing movie, which I have a like, you know, well, I'll get to it when we get to the honorable mentions, but like instead of just going into it like, oh, this is about pirates, like this should be cool. I'm not expecting like some super deep, life changing like story arc or like you know what I'm saying? Like
Oh, for sure. And I mean, we talked about that with Christmas movies, right? At the
yeah,
time when they come out, you're not sitting there thinking like, "Oh, Elf's a classic forever." That one took some time to curate, as I'm sure all of them did. It takes a couple years.
yeah,
Um, and even with it, with probably most of these franchises that we're going to talk about, and I know two of them, nope, all three of them so far that we've mentioned were not expected to be anything, right? Um, Harry Potter, like they were really good books. Everyone loved them. Um, the first movie came out and people just generally enjoyed it. It was good and it's held up. Um, Pirates of the Caribbean, like I said, no one expected it to be as good as it was. You know what I mean? Or carry on as long as it has.
right,
Same thing with the MCU. Iron Man is like the best example. They just made an Iron Man movie, and it people went nuts. It was
yeah,
the greatest thing and kicked off the largest franchise of all time.
right. And I want to touch on this last point, uh, unless you have any other things you want to say about pirates before I forget, because I wanted to say the same thing about the Harry Potter movies. The music, like you said earlier, for
Mm,
pirates is so good, and that's another thing that I loved about the Harry Potter movies.
right.
That like the Harry Potter theme song is so good. I love it so much. It like gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. But Pirates, same thing. The Pirates theme is so good.
I know. Who did the Harry Potter or the Pirates theme? Who composed that?
I'm not sure, but while you're looking it up, because I can hear your keyboard,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
there are some cool videos of, like how people play songs with like wine glasses full of water at different levels and they just like rub
Yes.
the rim of it. There's so many cool videos of people doing that for the Harry Potter theme, and it sounds like majestic.
Oh yeah, that one's just the simplicity of that one. And okay, I knew it in the back of my mind, but I didn't want to sound like a complete idiot. But John Williams does the Harry Potter score, who also did the Star Wars score. So
Hey, nice.
that dude's
Makes
just a
sense then.
legend. He's
Yeah.
just a legend. He can do the theme songs like nobody else.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, that's a we always have to remember that we like the music around here. And Hans Zimmer does Pirates. Um, he's pretty notable as well. So
Yeah, he doesn't suck.
yeah, he doesn't suck.
Oh man. All right. So you ready for my number 4?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's see. Let's see where
All
it
right.
lands.
This might shock everybody
Uh oh.
because we haven't talked about it, on the podcast very much, especially recently. But coming in at number 4, which I believe will be our first overlap, is going to be Star Wars.
Nice.
Now,
Number 4.
I'm putting it at number 4, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because of a few points. One, I'm sure it's high up on your list, and I'd much rather hear you talk about it. But two, I haven't really seen many of the movies, so I don't have much to talk about other than like Mandalorian season 2 got me hooked with the companion series. Obviously, you've heard me talk about my journey so far if you've been listening to the podcast over the last month or two. But on top of Clone Wars and Rebels being great, which is what I'm currently working on, Rogue One and Solo were great movies, which we've talked about before too. But I recently purchased Jedi: The Fallen Order, which is an absolutely amazing video game telling an absolutely amazing like Star Wars story that hopefully someday can be intertwined into the Star Wars canon, and hopefully we can see Cal Kestis in some live action or animated way. But that's all I'm going to say about Star Wars because I'm sure you have much more to say, and it's probably number 1 on your list. But no spoilers. We'll wait till we get there.
Right. Well, I mean, to your surprise, you've actually seen a majority of the movies. There's 11 movies, and you've seen the prequels,
Oh
Solo,
yeah, I
Rogue
forgot I
One,
did see the prequels. That's right.
and you've seen Episode 4 of recent time. So really, you've
Yeah.
got 6 of 11. So
Yeah, that's not bad. I would say, even though I watched episode 4 within the last like 5 years, I definitely want to watch Rogue One and the original trilogy again,
yeah,
just because episode 4 is still kind of a little fuzzy, even though I have watched it within the last 4 or 5 years. But yeah, that came in at number 4, just like because I'm still working on it, but I love it,
you're
and
you're appreciating the franchise already.
yeah, yeah. As I complete it, it'll move up much higher on my list for sure.
Yeah.
So what's your number 4?
My number 3.
Number 3. That's right, because you went first.
Yes, sir. All right, number 3. We're getting into the serious stuff now. It's gonna get deep. But
man.
coming at number three is a little known trilogy known as The Matrix.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it? Cool. Let me tell you about it. But yeah, no, The Matrix comes in at number 3 for me because those are movies that every time I watch them, I get more out of them, and that's mostly because of just like the philosophical, like even like ethical, like very deep rooted subject matter that they cover. Even though they kind of do have like a Rick and Morty debate whether they are as deep as they intend to be or not. Which I totally get, but I'm definitely one of those people that reads way too far into them, probably. But that's like one of the reasons I appreciate them a lot. Um, you know, good actors, even though maybe, people wouldn't call them like good acting, like Star Wars, it's about the style of the movie, right? Like Star Wars isn't meant to have the best acting. That's not the point of those movies, and neither is that of this. It's placed, it's built, it's correct for the universe and the movies and what they're covering, um, the style of them. But they're also good fun. They're action movies too. They did a lot of, I mean, for the time they did a lot of groundbreaking stuff, and you know
Yeah.
when those came on the theater, there wasn't really much else like it that had been shown before, at least in the way they did it, um, with the slow motion, maybe poor CGI a little bit
Yes.
as it ages,
The
but
bullet
you know
time.
bullet time. It's just so many memorable, first times in that trilogy, for better or worse. And then and I enjoy the story a lot,
Plus,
and
a great source of memes.
always a great source of memes. That's
We can't.
always
That factor has to play into these. That's an
it
important thing.
does. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I just feel like the bullet slow motion thing. Like everybody wants to do that in their head. Don't tell me a single person that didn't like pretend to do that at some point.
Right.
No, those are just big favorites of mine. I wish I would try to watch them every year, and I might get close to that. Maybe every other year.
Yeah. I haven't seen those since. I don't even know if I. I probably saw the second one. I don't know if I saw the third one, but I mean, I did see the first one. Those came out. I think I was in middle school, maybe. But yeah, good movies. Not on my list or my honorable mentions. So I'm glad that you brought them up.
Good. What
Plus, I
about?
mean, who
Let's see
doesn't
here.
like Keanu Reeves, right? I mean, come on,
Oh, of course.
it's hot
Yeah.
stuff this day and age.
Keanu Reeves has aged well. Let's just say
Yes,
that.
like a
People
fine
appreciate.
wine.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, people appreciate him more and more over time.
Yeah, I do. I think I would appreciate those movies much more now as an adult, right? Because they
You
cover a
would.
lot of existential things, like
Yeah. That's my biggest draw is like the existential subject matter, the philosophy of it,
yes,
and there is a lot of, to me that's like what philosophy is too. Like there's contradiction, there's things that just don't make sense, and that's kind of the point of them.
right.
They're
Makes you
covering
think.
subject matter that, yeah, it's not definable. If it was, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting.
Right.
So
And they're making a fourth one here soon.
yeah, so
More of a
that three
reason
is
for
gonna be,
me to go back and watch them.
yeah, we'll have to do a resurgence there. But yeah,
Nice.
Matrix setting in there, pretty solid for me. What about your number three?
Number three. Man, this is a hard one. I know what my number one is, and it's gonna be. It might not be shocking to you, but it might be actually be shocking to you. Uh, it's probably an unsuspecting number one. But my number two and three, I'm torn because I like them both, obviously, but one's more of a personal preference, whereas the other is more widely accepted as a favorite franchise. So, man,
We won't hold you to it. We can always do
No,
this
no.
episode again in
Dis-
like 3 months.
All right, decision has been made. I'm gonna do my personal favorite as number 3, just because I know that it doesn't really hold up to number 2. But my number 3 is going to be like Batman slash the DC extended universe. Now, I'm probably gonna get hammered on this, but I kind of like the DCEU a little bit more than the Batman franchise itself. So, if you're not familiar with what the DCEU is, that's going to be like Man of Steel forward. So, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, Aquaman, the Wonder Womans, Shazam,
Did you say
Suicide
Justice
Squads.
League? No.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Snyder Cut coming soon. But those, like I said earlier about my Marvel point, like I got really into the New 52 reboot of DC, and like particularly the Aquaman movie kind of follows a really cool Justice League comic storyline, which was awesome. But I just kind of like those characters, you know, better because I'm more familiar with them and I've read a lot of their comics, like the Batmans. Aquaman actually is one of my favorite superheroes from because of the New 52 reboot. Like it was so good. Flash, Wonder Woman. I hope and pray to the movie gods that they do something with like a Justice League Dark, which would be so cool. So that's like Constantine, Swamp Thing,
I love Constantine.
characters like that, and the Justice League Dark books are so good. But could the movies have been executed better? Of course. Justice League was a train wreck. And I have my theories about why, which we'll probably get into someday down the road after the Snyder Cut releases and we have Jordan back on and we can just pick everything to pieces. But I think this kind of plays into what I said a little bit earlier about people's expectations going into movies. The DCEU kind of suffers from, in my opinion, not being Marvel. So I think a lot of the backlash that they get, while some of it is warranted, I think the majority of it is unwarranted because people expect now superhero franchises to be built like the MCU was. So the MCU was like, 3 or 4 years of solo films, sometimes even like multiple solo films for certain superheroes before you get a team up movie. Uh, the first movie of this franchise was Superman, Man of Steel. The second movie is already a team up. You have Batman, you have Superman, you have Wonder Woman. I think. Excuse me. Oh, God, dry throat. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. You have a couple other cameos in that movie. The third movie is already the Justice League, right? Before you get an Aquaman solo movie, before you get the Wonder Woman solo movies, before you get solo Flash movies or Cyborg. So they kind of approached it in a different way where they kind of show you the team up collaboration movie before you dive into each character's backstory through their solo franchises, which I understand how that could kind of maybe confuse people, but again, like if you don't know who Batman is or Superman is, like even people who don't read comics know who Batman and Superman is. You don't really need 2 or 3 solo movies for each character in this universe before they team up.
That is a really great point I never thought about.
Yeah, so
I needed all those MC movies to even know those superheroes. I did not need those for Superman or Batman.
right, because I mean the MCU they're pulling deep cuts. I mean Iron Man
Yeah.
wasn't a very hugely popular character, right?
Right.
I mean, you have Ant-Man and the Wasp. You have like, I mean, those are deep cuts. But not only did they, you know, deviate from how the movies and characters were introduced, it's also a completely different feel. DC is by nature just a darker, grittier universe, I think, especially when it comes to somebody like Batman. So, of course, the movies kind of reflect that. And one of my friends, Ryan, I don't know if you're listening, but if you are, what's up, dude? He had some major beef with Man of Steel because Superman's supposed to be portrayed as like a symbol of hope and like positivity, right? And Snyder's version of Superman, he kind of was a little emo, like depressed, like gloomy. But it worked in the story that they were telling, right? And due to the studio being spineless, like, and caving to fan complaints before movies even come out, like, I feel like the DCU didn't even get like a fair shake at things. Snyder is not even able to finish his vision for it, and all this crazy stuff, and WB canceling and changing things all the time at the drop of a hat because fans might not like it even though they haven't seen it yet. It's just crazy. So like critically and like fan wise, outside of people who are fans of like DC and stuff, not a favorite franchise to most, but it's up there for me because I love these characters and I have fun watching these movies. But I also had to include the Batman franchises because, Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, Michael Keaton Batman, Batman Returns. Like, there's so many good Batman movies. So it was hard for me to keep this off my list just because of my fandom for DC. What do you think about Batman and the DCEU?
Well, Batman was briefly battling Harry Potter for the number 5 spot, specifically Batman: The Dark Knight trilogy. Um, but I do agree with you. I do like the characters of the new, like Man of Steel forward. I loved Man of Steel. I love that Batman vs Superman starts right after Man of Steel, and I
Oh
like
yeah,
the portrayal of. I love the portrayal of all the characters. Right, obviously the movies had a lot of missteps, but the way they've built out those characters is awesome. And yeah, it definitely suffers from you know being in the shadow of them trying to start up a larger universe franchise in the wake of peak MCU, and yeah, the fan it's definitely like the fans thing, but it's also kind of like the corporate side of things. I feel like the corporate agenda definitely conflicted with the artistic agenda
yeah,
with those movies where they wanted to make something very distinct in its own right that fit in with those characters, but then there's all this pull to be like, hey, do this because this is what Marvel did and they made $8 billion. Let's
yeah,
do that.
right,
Yeah, so there's lots of knock there. But I definitely agree. The characters, those are some of my favorite superhero characters.
yeah,
I would say there's a handful out of the MCU that I would like sprinkle in with them if I would make like a top 10 superheroes thing.
hmm,
But they just seem so much more solid to me as characters, superhero characters.
yeah. And I don't know if my assessment of DC being darker than Marvel comic wise is accurate because I haven't really read Marvel comics, but the DC comics I have read, some of them are pretty dark and gritty. Uh, and I'm just kind of drawn more towards that for some reason, probably because I'm weird and not normal. But if you ever get into comics, Nick, let me know because when I was going through my rampage of the New 52 reboot, I actually made like a massive spreadsheet that's broken down by like superhero and the like so like comics come in like individual issues that release, I think, monthly or maybe bi-weekly. I forget the cadence, but please don't skewer me, comic fans. That you can buy the individual issues, or you can wait for a while and they get like published into thicker, like they're called trade books, which is like a compilation of maybe like 5 or 6 issues of a comic. So they're like maybe 100-page book instead of like a 15 to 20-page comic or whatever. So my spreadsheet's organized by superhero, and then I have all the trade volumes and like the date they were released and the order that they go in for each superhero. It's really, really dorky. But like, I like highlighted ones I've read, ones I've started. It's bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, I I honestly don't have like the slightest clue of how to like physically or even digitally read a comic book. I wish I did because I want to read the Star Wars comics that I believe Marvel makes now. I think they have the rights to it, something like that. But I would like to read the Star Wars comics, but I have no idea how that works. That's like a world I outside of going to like literally finding like a comic book shop somewhere and going there and doing it. Like maybe that's how it has to be done. I don't know. But I wish
Hey,
they
let
would
me
just
know.
show up at my door.
There's a comic shop uh, close to us.
Yeah,
We
I
can go
know that. I
sometime.
imagine there is. Yeah. I would like to go find some Star Wars comics and
Yeah, let's
dig
do it,
in.
man.
All right.
We'll make a date of it.
Okay.
But yeah, you have anything else to say about the Batman or DCEU franchises?
No. Yeah, no. I think that's a good one. I'm glad it made your top 5. It was the Batman almost made it in there for my top 5. So,
Nice, nice. All right, let's hear your number 2.
oh man, are we on number 2 already? All
We
right.
are.
So this is
We're just
this
booking
is gonna,
right through it.
this is gonna be rough. I should just swap. Well, yeah, it's a wash. I mean, after I say number 2, we're gonna know what my number 1 is, or vice versa.
Come on, I already know what your number 1 is.
All right, we're gonna do my number 1, and then we'll do my number 2 to keep the suspense there. Um, if that makes sense.
It makes sense in my heart.
Okay. So my number 1, but I still have one more to do, is Star Wars. Um, that's apparently my favorite franchise of all time. And it's probably a good leap and bound over my number 2. And I would even say my number 1 and number 2 are leaps and bounds over number 3 and all the rest. Um, but yeah, Star Wars is hands down my favorite franchise, and there's a plethora of reasons why. And if you listen to a lot of our podcasts of recent, particularly the Mandalorian Companion series, check out the playlist on YouTube, you might understand why it is and how it is, because I know far too much about Star Wars. Probably not as much as other people, but I like to consider myself a connoisseur of the subject matter.
Yes, you very much are a well of Star Wars information. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's, as my wife would say, she doesn't know where all it goes, information just in general. As far as just like all the games I play, all the all the shows and movies I watch. I'm a giant nerd. But Star Wars, just to knock some like quick bullet points out would be obviously arguably one of the most groundbreaking moments in cinematic history before my time in 1977, right? 79, 77, whatever.
Somewhere around there.
I think it was 77, and then it was 80 and 83. So, you know, the episode 4, right? Or at the time it was just known as Star Wars. Um, George Lucas, struggling director to like land any sort of like successful money making hit.
I'll just make this small indie film.
Yeah, literally makes a small indie film, shopped it to everybody. No one really cared. Fox was like, "We'll pick it up." They made it on a ridiculous budget, hit play, and it just destroyed everything for like 3 years, and then probably
Yes.
for the next two movies. Literally one of the largest cultural phenomenons to like hit the world. I don't know if there's anyone who doesn't know or recognize Darth Vader. Um,
Yes, it's the Batman and Superman of sci-fi.
right, exactly. It, and it took sci-fi probably to a different sort of mainstream. Um, in particular, the way it executed with sci-fi elements that hadn't been done before. Sci-fi in the 70s is a lot different than sci-fi these days. Um, I mean, the MCU, all our superhero movies now are technically somewhat sci-fi. Um, there's everything about our modern movie going experience is a lot of sci-fi in there, and I think in large in part that's because of Star Wars, because they took sci-fi very older, based on samurai movies, older westerns, all these different themes that were very familiar, especially to American culture, um, and just
Yeah,
put it in this
just
place that no
threw it
one
in space.
recognized. Threw it in space, and a very used space. It's not that shiny. Everything makes sense. Your favorite gripe is like they have all. They can jump through light speed between all these planets across the galaxy, but they still have analog TVs as their security monitors, or things
Yes.
like that. Um, you know, and it's also right now, particularly a blossoming pool of expanded universe material. I think we're about to
Hmm.
enter a second coming golden age of Star Wars content. But not to dwell too much on Star Wars, but I think it's pretty
Right.
clear why it would be my number one.
Yes. Makes very much a lot of sense to me. Probably everyone else listening, especially if they've been listening for the last month or two. They should know how we feel about Star Wars at this point, I would think.
And I always think about, because the reason you didn't watch Star Wars for the longest time was mostly out of a hipster notion of everyone likes it. I'm just gonna choose not to like it, and I do that with a lot of
Right.
things too. Um, but I would say that might be the only real reason anybody doesn't like or watch Star Wars is because they fall into that bucket. Um, you know, they either they're purposely not wanting to watch it or like it because they don't need to. Everyone else does. And if they like to say they did watch it and they have really specific gripes as to why they don't like it, they're just kind of covering up my first point there, um,
Right.
with fake reasons. So
Yeah. Makes sense. And I expected that to be your number one.
right, so there's still the suspense. What is my number two? We'll get to
Yeah.
it.
I'm
Coming.
interested. I wonder if it'll match my number two.
Oh, we can maybe just
You,
knock it out at the same time.
you ready for this?
Yeah, I feel it.
Uh, Definitely has to be the Middle Earth Lord of the Rings franchise.
Boom, locked in at number
Yeah.
two.
There you go.
Yes.
Number two on both lists. So personally, I'm more of a fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy than the Hobbit trilogy, and I think it's mostly in part because of how Lord of the Rings used a lot of practical effects, and the Hobbit just went 100% CGI. And yeah, that kind of like totally took me out of the Hobbit movies because it didn't look that great. Like,
quick quick interjection there. I have read loosely, um they're they've remastered the Hobbits into 4K. Not really remastered, they're originally shot in that super ridiculous film, right? I
mhm.
don't know if you knew that at the
No,
time.
yeah, I
They're shot
remember that when they were coming
whatever
out.
what is that, like the 70 millimeter, like the
Yeah,
it's
something crazy.
yeah, they shot it in like the absolute best, craziest film that technology that they could have. And I think at the time it was explained that when shrunken down into lower definitions, it gave that weird appearance that it had. But I hear now, with the 4K ness in full swing with our televisions at home, that is somewhat corrected. It looks more natural now. So I hear.
I'll have to give it a rewatch. I disliked the Hobbit movies so much compared to the Lord of the Rings movie that I didn't even bother watching the third Hobbit. I stopped with Smaug.
I just choose not to watch the third one out of just lack of. I've watched it. I've seen it once, and then I think I was just like, I don't need to watch this one again. The other two I don't mind, but
Yeah,
definitely Lord of the Rings is it.
I definitely remember having to read the Hobbit book in middle school for some reason for my like language arts class, which kudos to you because that's an awesome assignment that I still remember while I'm 33 now. But the book was awesome. Like I loved the Hobbit as a book. It's so much so that I kind of want to relearn how to read so I can give it another read. But it's been so long since Harry Potter that I kind of have lost that skill. Uh, but yeah, just we've talked about it before. I really love the use of practical effects when possible. I mean, obviously, it's a crazy fantasy world, so you're gonna have to use CGI. But I loved how the Lord of the Rings trilogy was able to still utilize practical effects as much as possible, and I thought it just gives it such a cool look, and it's so much fun to watch. And you had shared an article with me around Christmas about how the Lord of the Rings is actually a Christmas movie, and that made me really want to go back and rewatch the trilogy. But yeah, I'm in too deep trying to make up too much ground with Star Wars. I haven't had a chance yet. But
Yeah, I was really
well,
happy that article popped up because I had just told you how I think during the Christmas one of our Christmas episodes I was saying how I get the itch to watch Lord of the Rings this time of year.
yeah,
And then that article popped up. It must have heard me and told me why it was a Christmas movie. So,
yeah, that's pretty funny. So why is it number two for you?
number two for me is one. I think this is an example of a trilogy that, from the onset, set out to be what it became. If that makes sense. It wasn't just some one-off movie that just blew up. Peter Jackson made these movies because they were kind of filmed in tandem.
Hmm.
That's why they were able to release them 3 years in a row, being almost 3 hour movies each, and the extended editions are 3 and 4 hours each. Um, from the onset, they were intended to be what they were, and that was really to take what Tolkien did many years ago, right? In the midst of World War I, World War II, in this universe, this place that he created from his brain, that is the template for our RPG,
Right, that whole
wizard, magic,
yeah,
monsters, orcs, goblins, all that. Like,
yes.
people have done different variations of those, but they all root back to what he described in these
Now,
books and
now,
related.
how many books were there?
So there is The Hobbit, that is the most easily read one. Then there is the Lord of the Rings, all three of those, which are they may not have originally been like single books, but like later releases of them were definitely are the three of them. Because he wrote in very they were written over many years, and even like his children and stuff have curated a lot more of his writings into books. That's like where the Similarian comes in, which is like a collection of stories that he wrote. And then there's like other like really deep cut collections of stories and writings that some of them read as encyclopedia entries more so,
Mm.
and his children has just kind of like put them into books for people to read. But yeah,
Yeah, and
The Hobbit, and then the three Lord of the Rings, and then all the supporting material because he created languages and
right,
entire
yeah,
histories for everything.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Like we touched in Harry Potter about the larger world that they were able to build, and this one is just it's not even comparable. Like
Oh
like you
yeah.
said, he literally created his own languages. Like
Well, yeah, because he was a linguist, but he created functioning languages for this world. And so I always think about like the time period, right? He wrote this all, before 1950. I'm most certain. And for someone's mind to work like that before this, the past like
before it was cool.
right before it was cool for one, and then before there's just all this material to reference and be inspired by. To me, he has a beautiful mind to create what he did.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's. I mean, the Middle Earth franchise really needs no explanation. It's much like
Right.
Star Wars, or even the MCU. All right. I mean, it has to be on everyone's list. But yeah, I've wanted to rewatch the trilogy so much recently, and I'm gonna have to try to find the extended versions. I wonder if those are on whatever streaming platform. I think they're on HBO, but I wonder
They
if the
I
extended
want
versions are on there. If it's just the regular cut.
right. Yeah, I don't know where you can find the extended versions to stream, but I do have a very beautiful golden box set of the
Ooh,
extended editions on Blu-ray.
ooh, might have to borrow those.
Yeah, it is. It's a prized collective of mine, but it
Nice.
is my safe keep of those. Have you ever seen the extended editions?
No.
Oh man, that's probably the third one is 4 hours long, and the second one is
Nice.
like 3.5, and the first one's it adds like an hour to each movie. It's crazy,
Nice.
but
Yeah, I
it's
definitely got to watch those ones then.
it's the proper way to watch it for me.
Nice. Yes. Well, since you uh, already revealed your number one and we both tag teamed our number twos, it's time for Mike's numero uno franchise.
Man, I just want to say I really don't have any clue what it is. Thinking back of everything we just covered.
And you
This
know
is really
what?
interesting.
Before we reveal, I'm going to let the suspense and tension build here.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised at that we only had two overlapping franchises on our list. I'm both
Um.
surprised and also not surprised because we do kind of like different things, but we also like a lot of the same things, which doesn't sound like those two should go together in the same sentence, but that's how we are. I feel.
I think our fundamentals are very similar, but where we
Yeah,
branch out and go with those fundamentals is very different.
right. Yeah, because so my number one, much like yours, is in the sci-fi genre. I am
Whoa.
a fan of sci-fi, but nobody is going to expect this unless you are expecting it, and it'll make so much sense. But it's actually you notice how I said my number one franchise. I didn't say film franchise, though it very easily could and should be a film because I've watched the creator of this series. He has a short on his YouTube channel, and he has like a trailer for another short that he's trying to make, and he's very good at film and stuff. So like, I think given the resources, he could make a really cool movie, and with this particular source of content could develop it into a franchise. So that's kind of why I picked it. It very much plays out like a movie and has
You
multiple parts.
you have further confused me on what it
Okay,
might
so
be.
so my number one is Dad, which is a YouTube web series. Now, before you roll your eyes, so hard that they fall out of your skull,
I'm
and like,
currently meditating. They've rolled so hard in my skull.
yes.
I've
So
fallen to meditation. I'll be back for
also,
like 5 minutes when you're done.
listener, before you stop listening to this episode, just hear me out, okay? So I've talked about Dad a few times on the podcast. It's a YouTube web series, and it's technically an ARG, which we had an entire episode about, which was really fun in October. Go to that playlist on YouTube, check it out. And it's arguably YouTube's biggest ARG, but it kind of started as your typical ARG, but slowly developed kind of more into a web series with a lot of heavy ARG elements as opposed to like a straight up ARG. So the difference there would be an ARG, a lot of the story progression and content is created by the user, by the players of the game, like solving the puzzles and putting the pieces together. That kind of dictates where the story goes. And I say this is more of a web series because he's telling a very specific story, but he leaves like codes and clues and intertwines all these different media sources together to create the Dad series. That's kind of like where the ARG elements come into play. But it Dad has 3 acts. The most recent third act just had its finale put out right around Christmas, and the finale alone was an hour and 15 minutes long. So like the acts themselves are, anywhere from like an hour and a half to 2 hours of videos. So kind of movie length. So it's almost a trilogy. I'm trying my hardest to put this together here to fit this list. But the story is really interesting. It's kind of unique, but that's what makes it fun. And it's totally a sci-fi adventure that once you get back past like the like shock and base of the introduction, there's a very deep story and really cool like filmmaking techniques and stuff put into this that like make it my number one pick. At first glance on the surface, you might watch a video or two of it and think it's like really stupid, really simplistic and like nonsensical. But as you continue to watch the series and start to unlock the puzzles and figure things out, and you really kind of have to watch like every YouTube video on this guy's channel for all the details to come together. But once those details come together and you see some of the cool filmmaking things that he does in the series, like it just blows your mind. The story is super cool, and it's presented to you in a very unique and fun and engaging manner. I guess the last few things I'll say about this is, so he puts out his videos, and up until the Act 3 finale, most of the videos in the acts are like anywhere from a minute to like 3 minutes long, and they're released like semi-frequently, and you got to piece the story together, and then they'll have a finale for the act, and then they'll also put out a video that is every one of the individual videos like put together in one video, so you don't have to like click through 20 different videos or whatever. And he also does like live streams. He makes dumb music videos as this character. He streams Minecraft as this character. He does dance parties as this character, live streams, and in those streams you get more of the ARG element of people hearing little drops of clues and story elements and stuff. And he has a Discord called Dad's Own Discord where he goes in all the time and drops little story elements in, and the fans kind of engage with him there and kind of build on the deeper like lore of the series. And when the ARG first released, of course, all of the YouTubers that like investigate, I use air quotes, investigate, and like cover ARGs and internet mysteries and stuff, obviously covered this series and talked about it a lot. And another part of the ARG element comes in here. Dad started talking about these YouTubers like in his Discord and in some of his other videos on his YouTube channel, so much so that like those YouTubers became a part of the web series, so much so that like in the Act 3 finale, two of the YouTubers that got pulled into the story were actually in the finale video, which was really cool. But like all that stuff compounded on top of each other, plus a really cool science fiction story, makes this my number one franchise pick. Do you have any questions or comments? I think Nick died.
Long silence. Just had to like let that hang there for a moment. I had to come out of my trance. Okay.
Right.
Hold on. We're online. We're live. Okay. So it has taken me to propose us to come up with a top 5 franchises of all time list. And for you to place that above Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, for me to finally decide I have to go watch this.
You do.
Because good Lord, I don't know what to say. I have to go watch it for what you have done here tonight. And I will say, I was telling Aaron how you had like 3 pages of notes.
2.5 of those were on Dad. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. Because I was like, yeah, I'm really not sure what all the notes might be on, but I did say I was like, he's probably gonna pick like a YouTube channel as his like favorite franchise or something.
You know me so well.
I have her as witness that I called that right before we started recording.
Nice.
And I can't believe that I removed that from my memory. I think I just got so caught up in like what we were talking about that I just no longer saw it coming. I saw it coming. I called it in jest, and then here we are.
Nice.
you doing it. That's crazy. That's wild. I don't think I realized it was sci-fi.
Yeah.
We're talking about the video with like this is related to what that video Danny Brown was in.
Yep. Exactly. And there's amazing cameos in the series. Danny Brown is in quite a handful of the videos.
Danny Brown.
The AT&T girl, I don't know her name, but everyone knows the AT&T girl from the commercials, obviously. She's in the series. Excuse me. But yeah, this is on the top of my list just because I like different and unique things, and I love ARGs, and this is a combination of all those things. And there's kind of like a very specific, I mean, obviously there's an order to watch it in, and obviously not everyone's going to have enough time to or desire to watch every video on his YouTube channel. I haven't watched the gaming streams or the music streams. I've watched a lot of the music videos because the songs are terrible. I mean, because he's doing songs in character, and this character is like very rudimentary, right? So the music videos, the songs themselves are pretty terrible, but they're also like really catchy and kind of bops, you know? So, and the videos themselves are kind of funny, so I watch them all and kind of like them. But there's like 4 or 5 videos that you need to watch before you start the first act, which is the introduction of the Dad channel, which is kind of what made like all the quote unquote YouTube investigators like start looking into this channel, because they were kind of weird videos. I mean, obviously it's very easy to tell that this is, you know, an ARG. But those first few videos that are only like a minute or so long each, you need to watch those first and then dive into the acts. But before Act 3's finale came out, there's about an 11-minute video that recaps the entire story so far. So I would start with that, Nick, before you go into much Dad stuff. It's only 11 minutes. But yeah, what I was saying, since you couldn't hear me, is there's like 3 or 4 videos that introduce the Dad channel that you should watch if you're going to get into the channel. But even before you do that, there's an 11-minute recap of the entire story that he released before the Act 3 finale. So spend 11 minutes watching that video just to see if it's anything that might interest you. But while we're
Can you
here,
give me a
the
roadmap? You should make a roadmap
oh
like you
yeah,
did for the comics.
yeah, I can give you the videos you should watch. But the creator of the Dad channel, his name's Nathan Barnett, and he's a very creative guy, and I really enjoy like the Dad channel is a completely separate channel from the Nathan Barnett channel, and he has short on there. Man, I can't remember what it's called. I could look it up real quick, but it was really good, and he has like a little trailer type thing for a second short that he wants to do that I'm excited for, and I hope that he's able to make. Let's see. Milford is the short that he has trailers for that he's trying to make. And Neutral is the short that he actually put out that's really good. So I recommend, checking out Nathan Barnett and really give an honest, you know, fair try of Dad because it's interesting. But yeah,
All right.
that's my top five.
Well,
and that's your
guess
top
I'll
five.
give that a dive. That's nice. I think you subverted all expectations, and except I guess mine subconsciously.
Right.
And that you picked a YouTube channel.
Hey,
That's
I
very
gotta.
that's very modern and progressive of you. You're just showing the fact that YouTube content creators can go from that to the big screen.
Well, they should. I mean, YouTube's an interesting platform, and I think there are a lot of things on YouTube that haven't really been discovered yet. I mean, Dad's got a lot of subscribers and a lot of views, but there are a lot of really creative people out there, and YouTube is a great place to put your stuff, right? And hopefully you can get noticed by the right people. And I really hope that Nathan Barnett can, you know, get a chance with some studio backing and some financial backing to be able to like make something that he's trying to make because I think he's a pretty good creator.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a respectable pick.
Yeah. Did you have any other honorable mentions? Because I have quite a few that we can just run through. We don't have to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, so I'll just hit some honorable mentions here. James Bond, it was mentioned,
Nice.
but I'll officially list it. Particularly the Daniel Craig. I like the newer Bonds a lot, but the old ones are also very good. To
I've heard
give a watch
he's like
sometime.
I've heard Daniel Craig is in the running for the best Bond.
He definitely is. It's tough. It's one of those things where there's a lot of traditional Bondies that don't like him or think he is. Obviously, there's some really good Bonds of the past, but franchise wise, he holds the strongest franchise and series of Bond movies because they actually have a continuous arc to a degree. They get more continuous as it goes on. But as a franchise, grossing wise, story wise, connectivity, all that, that places his Bond movies very strongly as the best ones, in my opinion. X-Men.
Hey, that's on mine. Nice.
Love the X-Men. I'm a big fan of the newer ones, right? With all the young Michael Fassbender as Magneto is awesome to me. But obviously the originals are good too. And then as that kind of just connects to Wolverine, which is a
Right.
little sub of the X-Men, which is
Yeah.
right sub of the MCU technically, right? Could be,
Yeah.
might be
Yep.
someday.
Exactly. It is comic wise. Hasn't been yet film wise just because of contractual things. Funny you say that you like the newer X-Men because those are the ones that I haven't seen. But like really what puts X-Men on my honorable mentions is Logan and the two Deadpool movies.
I didn't see Deadpool too.
Oh, it's so good. Those movies are so funny.
Yeah, right, and yeah, those kind of X-Men as a whole has just a lot of strong points to it. And I think we forget, or at least I forget, how storied and wide of breath they have gone with Wolverine. Right, I'm thinking all the way back to like the first one, to the point where it ends in Logan. Such a great series of movies.
Yes. I love
Um,
how also like Deadpool made a small cameo in one of the, I don't know if it was the Wolverine movie or if it was one of the earlier X-Men movies, but he was played by Ryan Reynolds. And then like when they actually made Deadpool movies so many years later, like Ryan Reynolds was
he
Deadpool. Like that's so cool.
yeah, at the top of the nuclear facility where he was like all masked up.
Yeah, I don't know if he had a mask, but yeah,
He
I
wasn't the
remember there's a
not the
scene.
current version of Deadpool. It was a different version of Deadpool, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene I'm thinking in particular, like they're all in an elevator for some reason. I don't know.
Hmm.
I could be misremembering because it was so long ago. But yeah. Any more?
Um, the MCU, but I wanted to call out just like Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, Doctor Strange,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
as the
Yes.
little sub buckets there. Those are the
I think
strong
Doctor
ones.
Strange is kind of a sleeper for most people. That was a good movie.
It it is. It's really good, and I think that's because it was. I think it was stuck in a weird time, and there also isn't multiple of them. It was like a late entry, and I think they kind of pushed that out to get him into obviously Infinity War and Endgame. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's why it's a little overshadowed, but that's a really good one. John Wick, though I have only seen
Ah,
one of
yes.
them, I own the second, need to see the third. I hear really good things about it. And I enjoyed the first one, so I just wanted to throw that in there as a an area to improve, if you will, as my franchise to improve upon. Um, so that would be John Wick. And then I did mention earlier I had this is technically a film franchise. There's only one of them, but I am strongly hoping that it blossoms into more because there is a large franchise to be had if done correctly, but that would be the Warcraft universe
Ah, yes.
franchise. I think the first movie was wonderfully executed. It was the right flavor of fanfare and honoring the game and their source content. So if they can keep doing that and stick with it, I think they'll make money in the long run and make good movies.
Yeah. Can't
There's
argue with
only
that.
there's only like 25 million people that would watch that movie for sure.
Yeah, and
So
there's
if they
only
did some
like
quick math,
right. And there's only like, I don't know, like 100 million different storylines you could make movies out of. Like, I mean, you have
what's the
over a
average movie
decade
theater
worth of
ticket?
video game material. Uh, like I want to say like 9.50, $10.
All right, let's just say $10.
That's a lot of cash.
All right, so I mean that's $250 million. I guess that's not enough. Man, movies are expensive. Um, if 25 million people went and watched a Warcraft movie, it'd make 250, so it'd pay for itself, so they can get some more people. But that's just no. I think it could be done. Whatever.
Yeah,
I think the money's there. But yeah, that's the franchise that I would like to see become more of a franchise.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. You got any more? Or are you ready for mine?
Nope. Let's hear your honorable mentions.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna kind of go with my favorite first, and then the rest are kind of in no particular order. But the honorable mention that I really had a hard time, like it was right on the border of being in my top five and not being in my top five, and that is the Cornetto trilogy, which probably isn't super familiar to most people, though. Our fan pick, give her props. Um, This trilogy consists of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End,
Mm.
which the movies aren't really connected story wise, but there's connection. The only thing that kept us out of the top five was The World's End. it wasn't that as strong as Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Otherwise, if The World's End was, just a little bit stronger, uh, that that would have been really hard for me to keep out of my top five. But I don't know. Maybe I need to rewatch The World's End. But loved those movies. Love Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Shaun of the Dead is like a go-to for me, and even Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is great too. The Jurassic Park franchise is on my honorable mentions. More so the older ones, but the newer ones are pretty decent. And this is where my expectations talk was going. Like the Chris Pratt ones kind of get ripped to shreds, but it's like, what are you expecting to see in a Jurassic Park movie? Like, you're not going to have the craziest, most deep genre transcending like storyline. Like, you need to manage your expectations. You're going to see this movie because you want to see some dope dinosaur CGI, right? Like, I don't know why you would expect anything else. And the newer movies do that for me. They have dope dinosaur CGI fights. That's what I went to see. I also have, do you have anything to say about either of those?
Uh, I would say I should have mentioned Jurassic Park. In hindsight, is an honorable mention. But yeah, the older ones are obviously classics. I oddly enough like the all three of those equally. Um, First one's obviously the larger, the stronger classic, but the other two I do like.
Yeah.
But the newer ones, I mean, it's a modernized Jurassic Park. Like, what would you do with the Jurassic Park's story and content in 2020? You would
Right.
make giant CGI dinosaurs wrecking each other.
Right. I mean, what else is
Acceptable.
there to do? I mean, really,
Yeah.
honestly, it probably should have just been a singular movie, right? The original Jurassic Park and left it there. But I'm okay with more. It's dinosaurs. I mean, come on, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Next up, I have the Monster Verse. So this consists of like Godzilla, I think 2014 Godzilla, the Kong Skull Island,
Mm.
the
The
other Godzilla movie.
that's the Monster Universe franchise by Universal that they're trying
Yes.
to kick off and be popular and successful. Oh,
Yes.
but
And then like
that those recent Godzillas are really good.
yeah, I forget what the most recent one was where um man, I should have wrote that down. But the most recent one was awesome. Where he's like fighting oh shoot, man, why can't I think of any of the names? Anyways, where he's fighting like all the crazy like Godzilla villains from the past
Mm-hmm.
was so sweet. And then there's going to be like a Godzilla and Kong movie. Again, not expecting any like groundbreaking things here. I'm just expecting some cool like huge monster fights, and that's what these movies
Right.
do. I have the Chronicles of Narnia movies on here, and they kind of suffer the same fate as why Harry Potter was on my honorable mentions. The movies are good, but I enjoyed the books better. That might be a nostalgia thing, but I thought the movies were okay. I have the Men in Black franchise on here. I have not seen the most recent international movie, but when I was a kid, like the first two Men in Black were like those were my jam. They were so good. Ocean's 11. Similarly, I haven't seen the most recent, which is Ocean's 8, but I loved the first three. They were really fun to watch. The Unbreakable trilogy, which is Unbreakable, Split, and Glass, M. Night Shyamalan movies. Split and
Shamalama.
yeah, Split was amazing. I loved Split so much. Glass was pretty good. Unbreakable, probably my least favorite of the three, but it was a cool trilogy. And the way Glass ended, it kind of ended like they could make more movies. So I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't mind seeing more. Did you like any of those three, or have you seen any of those three?
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Those are all really good honorable mentions.
I have three final ones. I had to break them up in
Ooh,
sections
okay.
so I didn't like bore you to death. Uh, oh, just kidding. I have four. 21 Jump
Oh,
Street with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum.
wow.
Dude,
Okay.
those
Those are funny.
I never watched the show, but like those two movies were amazing, and I hope that they revisit that and make more because those movies were so fun to watch. I have the Friday franchise. I mean, there's not really no explanation needed. Friday, it's great
Mm-hmm.
movies. I have the Major League franchise. Again, I grew up loving baseball. It was my favorite sport to play. And of course, my favorite team being the Cleveland Indians. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't I love a series of movies about my favorite baseball team when they sucked and were like the worst team ever in baseball? And these movies just made fun of them. It's like perfect combination. The first Major League movie is literally like hysterical. So funny. So many funny moments in that movie. And then lastly, my last honorable mention is the George Romero's like Dead franchise, like zombie franchise. So like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, insert word before of the Dead, those movies. Haven't seen
Right.
all of them, but like the original Night of the Living Dead was amazing. Dawn of the Dead, the original one, was great, and then I even liked the remake. Was really entertaining, and I'm always a sucker for zombie movies. So yeah, that pretty much rounds out my honorable mentions, and then I had two franchises that I haven't seen but I want to get into, and those would be the Mad Max movies and the John Wick
Mm,
movies.
nice. Yeah, Mad Max. That's a good one. Good pick there.
Yeah, I mean I own Fury Road. I think wasn't that the first one with Tom Hardy?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even.
Was that the only one
I
with
bought
Tom
it
Hardy?
one. Yeah, I think they're making more. But
Yeah.
I
We'll let
bought
that
it
one
on
grow a little
Black
bit.
Friday. Yeah, bought that on Black Friday the year it came out, and have not put it in my DVD player. Just been sitting on the shelf.
Fury Road?
Yeah,
Dude, watch it. Watch it right
I
now.
know. I need to. All right, see ya. No, yeah. So that kind
That
of
one's
rounds
good.
out. You got anything left to say before we go on to our fan pick?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. So, made a post. Admittedly, my timing of these posts are pretty terrible. So, I should probably make these posts like sooner than like 3 hours before we record, so we can get some more input. But one of our followers, Bianca Burwell, she noticed. She saw the bat signal, if you will. She heard our cries for our fans' favorite film franchises. So she she gave us one, two, three, four. Oh, she actually gave us her top five. So she said the Evil Dead franchise, which I have not seen unless Army of the Dead. If that's an Evil Dead franchise movie, then I've seen that one, but I haven't seen any of the other ones. But they are popular movies among those who love horror. The old, oh shoot, what's his name? God, Bruce Campbell. That's it. Good old Bruce Campbell. Yeah, Army of Darkness is in there. That's a great movie. Oh, there's a lot of Evil Dead
See, you're
movies.
already plugged in.
Oh no, those are two
So
games.
that was her favorite?
Three. I don't know. If she didn't give us like. I don't think they were in a particular
Okay.
order. But she had Evil Dead. She had Star Wars. She had Lord of the Rings. She also had the Cornetto trilogy. So props to you, Bianca. And then she also put the Alien franchise, which I haven't seen enough movies of to like put it on my list. That's kind of why it wasn't on there. But we
That's a
both
good
talked
honorable
about how much
mention.
we both have talked about how much we love Prometheus, and
Mm-hmm.
I really need to go and check out that entire franchise because I know I'll love it.
Yeah, that one's really good. Props to her for saying that, and also props to her for her work on some recent art that we have
Hey, that's
in
right.
in the works. So
Really excited to be able to use that. It's turning out so great. Uh, yeah, major props for sure. But yeah,
I'm mad I missed the Alien honorable mention. It's definitely
right.
an honorable mention, but
Yeah,
there's
it's
so
got your
many.
boy Fassbender in there,
Yeah, I love
or at least I mean
Fassbender.
the new ones, not the old ones. The
Sign
new
me
ones.
up. Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
right.
like. They're all good. Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Um.
that concludes our list. Do you have anything else you want to say?
There's like a few just weird notes that I picked up on while like researching some of this. I did not know that there are 8 Rocky movies and 5 Rambos. Um, I just did not appreciate that fact. I think Planet of the Apes could probably be an honorable mention at some point. There's just like a lot when I was just kind of looking through this and what there was. So it's just an interesting to kind of like research into as well, especially when you start talking about franchises and not necessarily like movie series. Um,
Hmm.
just the way they categorize things and overlapping ones, especially like the MCU, where they're talking about and like the superhero ones especially, where there's when you start thinking about like, well, that's the whole franchise, but then there's like sub franchises within there. Um, I didn't know there was 5 Shreks.
There's 5 Shreks.
Yeah, that's like the biggest thing is like all these ones where I was just like, I did not know there was that many of like that franchise.
That is pretty crazy.
Technically, there's 8 Alien movies, 5 Ice Ages. There's 5 Cars movies. I don't know where how that happened. Um, I was just really kind of like shocked when I was just looking at different franchises in the movie counts. I was like, holy crap, I've definitely missed some. But
Right.
yeah, there's a lot out there, and there's a lot for people to like. So I like that she had a lot of different ones there.
Yeah.
I'm sure the wider audience we were to ask, there would be a lot, and it could get hotly debated.
Big true.
I wonder if we just
Um,
were over inclusive of the big ones. I wonder if we can all just agree Star Wars and Lord of the Rings are the best, and we can just list everything
right.
else.
Right. Yeah, I kind of feel bad because four of my 5 are the big hitters, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I like them. I mean, I can't not have them on there. But
Right.
yeah, it probably would have been more fun to do some of the, you know, lesser known or thought of franchises. Not that they're lesser quality or anything, but
I think
yeah,
I think that I think that could be another episode topic. We'll find a different way to frame this question to better suit some of
yeah,
these the smaller grossers, if you will, the ones that don't necessarily gross the billions of dollars, but they're still excellent franchises.
right.
Other quick note, and I feel like I need to look into this more, is there's 7, and then there's going to be 8 of the Conjuring franchise, and I did
Yeah,
not
that's a
I I didn't appreciate all the movies. Like I know of all these movies, but I did not realize that they were part of a connected universe.
yes. Yeah, that's a one that's kind of been in the works here, and on the horror side of things, for
The
a while.
Conjuring,
But
Annabelle, and The Nun.
yep,
Yeah,
yep,
and
yeah.
then
But
the
they
Curse
definitely have
of Lorna,
Lolita
Lorna,
or
L-
Lorraine.
something like that.
Lo-
And then
Laura.
yeah,
Laura.
la, 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 la. And then the Crooked Man. That sounds scary as hhell. That's to
Yeah.
be announced.
The old bent
That's-
neck lady, crooked man.
Yeah,
guy.
that's what it reminds me of. I didn't know those were all together. So that was another one where I was like, wow, that's the Conjuring universe.
Wow.
I did not know that was a thing, but that's cool
Wow.
because I do like. I think I've seen the Conjuring and Annabelle. I need to watch all the other ones and get scared.
Yeah. Yeah, I always enjoy doing these list episodes. So yeah, we'll definitely have to find more top list topics to do in the future for sure. But yeah, we got some pretty fun plans for the rest of our episodes here in January. We're really excited for what we're coming out with. I think next week we're gonna have some gaming goals for 2021 since we're just turning the calendar here, so might as well make some gaming New Year's resolutions, I guess. And we'll be joined by our resident video game guest Chad from That Strange, and then we have another fun episode with a guest coming the following week with my friend Mick from the Scene Snobs. The Snob himself will be joining us, and we're going to be, learning about his career in the film industry, his career in podcasting, and have some fun film type topics to get down and talk with him about. And then, we'll round out our month here with catching you guys up with what we have been watching, which I know it might be a surprise to most, but I have actually watched other things besides Star Wars, and I'm excited to tell you what they are. So yeah, I think that does it.
That does do it. Looking forward to the month with some
That's right.
fun content on the way.
Yes.
Tune in.
Tune in. Follow us on the socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Showboys Podcast. Find our YouTube channel. Subscribe, please. It's free and helps us grow. And Nick did a really cool job of organizing all of our episodes there. And yeah, help us grow by telling your friends and sharing our pages and episodes with them. That's the easiest and most impactful way to help us grow as a podcast is by word of mouth or clicking the share button on the social media pages. We appreciate all of you that come and comment on our posts and share our episode links and all that stuff. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening. Until next time, be good. I hope we cued the music there.
Cue the music.
Yes. I feel lost when I'm not told what to do.